I am super excited about this. I know a lot of you are as well. I have been watching our first guest for a very long time. I have been admiring his work in the ring for a very long time. And, a couple of weeks ago, we had Brada Boy, Ray Cooper, literally hours before his PFL finale, which he won, by the way, so we are good luck. And now we have one of the biggest stars in the history of professional wrestling, who happens to be a huge MMA fan, who happens to be an MMA practitioner as well, joining us hours before a massive match of his own tonight on TNT. And so without further ado, let us go to the Zoom machine and say hello to the American Dragon, the one and only. Wow, look at this. Bryan Danielson, kind enough to join us. This is incredible, Bryan. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Oh, man. This is a huge honor. Thank you for the time. And I know that you're competing tonight against Rocky Romero. First time in, I do believe, 13 years. You guys tangle, right? Since 2008?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd be surprised if we wrestled in 2008, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, I was for the last time we wrestled, and I thought it was 2005, but you probably have a better... But like, if you look on the internet, the internet probably knows better than I do. So
this is what the Wrestling Observer tells me. Sometimes it could be a little hit or miss, but that's what they tell me. Nonetheless, I know it's a big deal. I know your match this weekend is a big deal at Full Gear. We'll talk about that. But the reason I've wanted to talk to you for a long time, and you've been, I think you've been eluding me. I don't know. I think you've been, evading me, is your love of MMA, because MMA has played, I think, a large part in your career and your persona. You could see the influence there, and I see you training as well. But we have to go back, of course, to the moniker, to the chant that I think took you to a whole other level, and that's the Yes Chant. And I do believe, I've never had a chance to talk to you before, that was inspired by the great Diego Sanchez, correct?
Yeah, for sure. So I first saw Diego Sanchez when he was on The Ultimate Fighter. And I think that's when a lot of people first saw him, right? And he would come to the cage and do, yes, yes, yes. And I always I took note of it, right? And I thought oh, that's so cool, or so whatever. And they wanted me to be so over the top. I was an underdog who inexplicably won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship in less than noble fashion, and they just wanted me to be super excited about it and a little bit annoying. And the first thing I thought of was man, if I really took that over the top, it could be a lot of fun. And I never dreamed it would take on a life of its own, which it kind of did.
Have you ever met Diego?
Yeah, I met him. Super nice guy. We did a show in New Mexico, in Albuquerque.
Okay.
And he came backstage, and it was a real pleasure to meet him. What a nice guy.
He never felt slighted or anything like that by you using the chant, right? He never was jealous about it. I mean, obviously you made it a million times more famous than he did, but I've talked to him about it. It never seemed to me like he was upset about it or offended by it. It seemed like he was almost honored that you were using it. Is that the vibe that you got?
Yeah, I didn't get the idea. That's what he had said to me, he said, I think it's so cool that you use it and that it inspires other people, because that's kind of really one of the reasons I think why he does it, is it's more of a fire yourself up inspiration type thing, and to see other people do it. And I think people who saw me do it, because this is kind of the life of the Yes Chant. He did it, and I'm not sure where he got it. Somebody told me he may have gotten it from Tony Robbins, but I don't know if that's true. I didn't ask him about that. I got it from him. Then all of a sudden, there's the Michigan State is using it like a basketball. The San Francisco Giants, I was part of the San Francisco Giants World Series parade because Hunter Pence had started using the Yes Chant for the San Francisco Giants. Pence had no idea who I was even. It was one of his teammates who's hey, yeah, that's a wrestler thing. He saw the Michigan State basketball fans doing it and thought it was inspiring and a great way to bring positivity and stuff to the club, that sort of thing. And then he took it, and then he started using it with the Giants without any reference even to me, let alone Diego Sanchez.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So the cool things is that people can kind of put their own meaning behind it, and it takes on a life of its own.
You also, of course, are, like I said, a longtime practitioner. In fact, I just saw you training with Joe Lozon and the guys up in Massachusetts. When did you first start to actually train in MMA, jiu-jitsu, grappling? When did this all start for you?
It's actually kind of sad because, like, as far as like ranking goes, I'm only a purple belt, and I've been training since 2002. That's a long time.
I mean, you're a busy guy. You're a busy guy.
Yeah, I don't get a chance to train that often, but yeah. So I started training in 2002. It was just because I was training at actually a pro wrestling dojo, and part of the New Japan style, and specifically Antonio Inoki, who fought like Muhammad Ali and all that kind of stuff, is bringing realism into professional wrestling. And so we were doing jiu-jitsu with Waleed Ismail, and
Wow.
which is an old school MMA name, and all that.
You
kind
trained
of
with
stuff.
Waleed?
Yeah,
You're kidding me.
Sure.
What? A legend.
You also have to understand. So he's like the first jiu-jitsu trainer I ever had, and because of his accent, he would say things like, for when you go for an arm bar, right, and you'd have to say, move the hips,
Yeah.
and I was like, move my ribs, because I knew like in Portuguese R sounds like H's, or is he saying move my hips? And I didn't know, I couldn't understand, and so I was just like, it was weird and wacky and all that kind of stuff. But Justin McCully, who trained who fought in UFC, he came and trained with us. I got a impromptu heel hook lesson by Ken Shamrock when I'd only been training grappling for probably 3 months, and he just came in. He was there for 5 minutes, and he asked me and this other guy, "Hey, do you want to learn heel hooks?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." And then like I gradually kind of like I train off and on here or there. I just really enjoy it. Like I feel like as humans, we're just kind of meant to like if we were going to play, right? If we're just going to play and we don't have all these things from technology, and you and I are growing up and we just want to play, we'd either sprint, like we'd run to see who's faster, or we'd wrestle around to see who's stronger. You know what I mean? And I think there's just a fun joy in that it is so primal and authentic to being human.
I want to ask my guy Frank. Is that there's like a buzzing sound when you're talking, like a weird? Is that?
Yeah, that's on Brian's side.
Is there something next to the computer or something? Because there's like I'm trying to eat everything that you're saying. No, it's nothing.
No,
it's like a weird
and so
static.
There was like a thing, but I'm in a hotel. I'm sorry, so I don't know. He thought it might be the Wi-Fi. I can try to move back. That change anything?
It does dramatically.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right.
Well, there we go.
Here we go. I wasn't going to bring it up. I was like, man, I don't want this. I'm really excited to talk to you, so I don't want to ruin this. I didn't know you trained with Waleed. Were you also roommates with Leotta Machado way back in the day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And not only that, and he doesn't know this. I was there when he won the title. I was living in Las Vegas at the time, and it was the only time I've actually ever been to a UFC show. And he was fighting for the championship, and he won, and I was there for it. And the complete upper deck, it was like 2000, must have been 2009, I think.
Yep, UFC 98. He knocked out Rashad Evans.
Yeah, yep.
Wow, that is so why didn't you go into MMA?
To be fair, I'm not a very good athlete.
Okay.
and so honestly, it wasn't even a thing when I got out of high school. And realistically, I'm not very competitive, which is why I do so well in pro wrestling. Like they tell me, I hate to break it to everybody, they tell me if I'm going to win or lose. You know what I mean? Which has actually served really well because I'm not competitive at all. So when they tell me I'm going to lose, it doesn't, okay, whatever. Some guys get upset by it. I'm not fazed by it at all. I like the performance and I like the physicality of it. So yeah, I think, and realistically, although when I was training really, really hard, which was like 2009-ish for a couple of years, I was training a lot of Extreme Couture in Las Vegas and with Neil Melanson a lot. And Neil Melanson's a great, great coach. And I had ambitions of doing a lot of like grappling tournaments and stuff. But even at that point, I'd have multiple concussions and that sort of thing. So the idea of doing an MMA fight or even like a kickboxing thing doesn't sound super appealing to me right now.
Is it true? I'd heard this. I wanted to confirm with you. One of, if not your first training partner at Extreme Couture in Las Vegas, was it Eric Nixick, who's now the head man over there?
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah, I know he was there.
Yeah, that's what I had heard, that he was one of the first guys who actually trained with you over there. And he was just a regular guy who came in, and now he's risen all the way to becoming the head coach at Extreme and having tremendous success with Francis Ngannou and a lot of guys. But that's what I had heard. You don't even remember. He was that low level.
You know what? No, now that you say that, I think that's 100% true, because I remember him being in those classes, and he'd already been there for a while, probably before I even got there. But yeah, I don't know if he was. Yeah, I assume he was there when I first got there. Sure, yeah.
So like when you saw Punk go over to UFC, was there a part of you that's like, man, I could do that too? You know, were you living vicariously? Were you thinking that a little bit?
No, I mean, that's just not how I'm wired, really, from like a competitive standpoint. I was super proud of him, because it's a huge leap, and Punk is somebody who is like, it's not like he ever did super competitive sports. It's very different from like Brock Lesnar jumping to UFC, right? Who's got like high level amateur wrestling background. He's just a monster of a human being as far as like just physique wise and athletic ability wise. And so like, to be kind of famous, and then to just put yourself out there like that, I thought it was really, really cool. And like, I'm somebody who like, I kind of flirt with the idea of like wanting to do an MMA fight. And then my wife keeps telling me, what a bad idea.
Come on. When you were, in this free agent period, did you think about it a little more? Is that when you were really flirting with it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, point now with 2 kids, I think like there's things that are harder about pro wrestling than MMA, which most of it is like the schedule and that sort of thing, and that you don't really get time off unless you get really hurt. But I think the intensity of even like a fight camp, you know what I mean? Because I've trained with some of those guys in the middle of their fight camp and all that kind of stuff. I think the intensity is something that would be very difficult for me to handle now, and especially with my health history and all that kind of stuff. Although one of the things that I do love to do is I love rolling with guys who are training for fight camps that are ready to kill, right? You know what I mean? Like it's a fun game until it's not fun.
Do you think you training in MMA, you rolling with these guys, helped your style evolve in pro wrestling?
Yeah, 100%. But I also think, so to me, wrestling is kind of like a combat theater, right? If MMA is like if you're looking at martial arts, the very martial aspect of it, like very warlike and competitive. Pro wrestling's on the very artistic, much more on the artistic spectrum. But one of the things that I do think is that people watching, and they might not be able to identify it, can tell if something really looks like it hurts or if it doesn't look like it hurts. And if you're using real technique that like really manipulates joints and really like, hey, this is really how you would take somebody down, that sort of thing. I try to implement more of those things into my style, just because I think even though people can't mentally process why, they understand like, oh, that makes sense. I think one of the things that really helped me in WWE, despite being so much smaller than so many of the other WWE wrestlers, is that a lot of the stuff that I do, in theory, I could legitimately do to people. People would believe me. Like I'd get my butt kicked for a long period of time, but then when it was time for me to come back, the stuff that I would do would be believable. And then, I mean, there's the theater aspects of it, that you would never do a top rope drop kick in a fight. Although, that one Anthony Pettis kick that lives on it for eternity, like, sometimes there's stuff like that where you're just like, maybe it would work.
I mean, I think there was one time, I can't, correct me if I'm wrong, speaking of that, didn't you and Punk recreate a moment in the Chael Sonnen Anderson Silva fight at UFC 148, the missed spinning back fist? You did that, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we sure did.
Everyone freaked out when that happened. It was like 2 days later, and you guys did the exact same sequence. Is that just something you guys were like, wow, did you see how crazy it was that Chael threw that? Let's just go recreate this?
Yeah. I don't remember whose idea it was, if it was me or Punk's, or maybe the two of us conspiring to be, idiots. But it's like, but yeah, I think there's two. I mean, there's just some cool things when you watch MMA that people don't do in pro wrestling, because pro wrestling gets, everybody gets into their own habits of like, this is how we do things or whatever it is. But like, even I was watching Jose Aldo fight, and this was years ago. The way he was countering stuff with body shots was so beautiful. And I started doing that a lot in my pro wrestling matches for about a year, and it worked really, really well. And I think there's just sometimes there you don't think of things, and these fighters have to come up with like new not necessarily new counters, but MMA has to evolve. So the fighters have to evolve. So they're doing things, and they're at the cutting edge of what's happening in martial arts about what works and what doesn't. So I think a lot of times you'll see things that you'll never see before when you're watching MMA, or even like the grappling now, like when you watch Abu Dhabi and stuff like that. When I first started watching it, there weren't many leg locks. Now there's a ton of leg locks. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the sport's evolving. So, and it's fun to use that in pro wrestling.
Yeah. I've said recently over the last few months, obviously, you don't need me to say it, but pro wrestling is on fire right now. It's so much fun. If you're a longtime fan, it's, shades of the late 90s, the Monday Night Wars, WWE, AEW, all that. I think it's hotter than MMA. UFC doesn't have a true competitor nipping at its heels like AEW and WWE. And you're a big part of that, right? You jumped over from WWE to AEW, left on very good terms. But I'm curious, when you had your final match in WWE against Roman Reigns several months ago, did you know that was the last time? Did you know that you were done when you walked out of that ring, that you wouldn't compete for WWE? In your mind, had you already made your mind up?
No, I didn't. I thought it could be, and it wasn't even like I'm leaving and going to AEW. Like, I was legitimately thinking like this might be like my last like full-time wrestling match. You know what I mean? Where I might do things here or there or whatever. But I honestly, I didn't know. I really took the summer to decide, and it took me a long time to decide. Like, I had a lot of fun in WWE, and there's a lot of people that I love and respect there that made it really hard for me to leave. Like, a large portion of my family actually works there. So it's like, and then, I just have a lot of friends, and there's a lot of great people who work there. So it was, I was contemplating that. I was contemplating AEW. I was contemplating just not signing the contract with anybody and just doing shots here or there. And I was also contemplating just staying at home and being a full-time dad. I love being at home with my kids. And so those were kind of the four options on the table.
And ultimately, why did you choose option AEW?
There was just something exciting about it and a little scary. There was like, you get too comfortable in something for too long, and you're just like, there was just something exciting about it. And there was also this idea in my mind, like, I tried not to, for the most part, I didn't. But in my WWE matches, I could go out there and kind of sleepwalk through them if I wanted to. I tried to do that, but in AEW you can't, because they do so much, and so much so to the fact that I was watching one of their shows and I was like, I don't even know if I could wrestle here. Like, these guys are doing so much, and like, I think this might be dangerous for me.
Wow.
And actually, I had mentioned that to John Moxley, and I were just texting about something or another, and I had said that to him, and he said, "Dude, you're Bryan Danielson. You can do any of this. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do what these guys are doing or whatever. You can create your own thing." And so yeah, but there were a lot of reasons why I went to AEW. There was actually a lot of reasons why I wanted to stay with WWE. And so it was just kind of, it was a really tough decision.
I've been told that when you change jobs, I've changed jobs a few times, the first 180 days are the toughest, and then you kind of get into a groove and it's smooth sailing. Do you feel like you're in that smooth sailing period, or are you still in the, we're kind of approaching the 180 days now since you debuted. I think it was late August, right? Or early September. So
it was early September.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like it's been pretty smooth. Like, I don't feel, I honestly, but you also have to understand, like, for most people, like, jobs, like, okay, it's getting into a new office or it's a new whatever. A lot of these people in AEW I've known for years and years. I just haven't seen them in a long time, And so, anyways, there didn't really feel like any sort of like, oh no, weird adjustment period, except the first time I had to do like an interview segment and nobody handed me a script. And I was like, what do you mean there's no script? Like, what am I saying? Well, say whatever you want. What do you mean say whatever I want? I can't say whatever. I'm going to talk about dinosaurs or something like that, about what my daughter just said, and so that, there was a little bit of an adjustment there, but, the wrestling is the kind of wrestling that I love to do. So it's been a lot of fun.
The media seems obsessed with the ratings and this and that and the quarters. It's like back to the late 90s, right? You guys, the buy-in. Is it a big topic? Like, are you guys watching backstage what they're doing on that Friday night when you're going head to head? Are you talking about what they did on Monday? Are you still keeping up, or is it blinders at this point?
So it's not blinders. There's absolutely, in the locker room of AEW, there's absolutely no talk about what they're doing, say, on like SmackDown. So if we're doing Rampage on a Friday night and we're doing a live show,
yeah,
I don't hear anybody talking about what they're doing on SmackDown. I do keep track of it because I have a lot of friends there, and so it's not like I watch all the stuff, but like Big E winning the WWE Championship, I was really happy for him. You know what I mean? Like, here's a guy who's like incredibly talented, works so hard, and just so happy for him. You know what I mean? When Cesaro, this was like May-ish, so I watched Cesaro versus Roman Reigns because Cesaro's my good friend, and it's like the first time he's ever gotten the WWE Championship match. So, like there's stuff like that I'll watch, but it's hard. Man, it's hard to keep up with wrestling these days if you want to watch all of it, or even just the good stuff.
Right.
There's good stuff out there. So if that being said, I highly encourage you watch AEW.
Yes. Wednesdays and Fridays, pay-per-view on Sunday, November 13th, Full Gear. You're in the finals against Miro, right? A title eliminator. So you're doing a lot. I'm just curious. I mean, speaking of Miro and others, what do you make of the fact? And obviously this, I'm putting you in a tough spot here because you're not the one making this decision. You're not the one having to answer for it. But like, they're letting go of a lot of guys over there, and a lot of them are a bit, head scratchers, right? Recently, Keith Lee and Karrion Kross, Bray Wyatt, et cetera, et cetera. What do you make of what they're doing over there?
So in some ways I get it. In some ways I feel like it's not right. And it's hard because like my father-in-law is the head of talent relations there. He's the one who has to call them all and say,
it's John Laurinaitis, right?
John Laurinaitis, yeah. And so, but one of the things that I've always had a hard time with, and I've been fired from WWE twice, so I kind of get this, is it's one thing if somebody does something bad, but like, for example, if you're under contract with WWE and you're not happy, or you're not happy with the company or whatever it is, if they can fire you and give you 90 days, you should be able to give them 90 days to be released from your contract. Yeah. I just think that. But on the flip side, if they're only firing you because of budget cuts when they're more profitable than ever, I just don't think that that's right. And they should, because they signed a lot of people to high-end contracts when AEW kind of started to keep people from going to AEW or whatever it is. But then they realized like, oh, well, AEW can't sign all these people. So now the people that have too many high-end contracts or whatever it is are, if they feel like they're getting paid more than they should be getting paid, they'll let them go or whatever it is. But you offered them a contract to be with you for 3 years or whatever. It was if you overpaid them, that's your bad, and you're still a very profitable company. And, so that's kind of my take on it. I wish they wouldn't, you know what I mean? But I also understand it's business in America. You know what I mean? Like, profits tend to be the most important thing for companies a lot of times. And you can even talk to the people within the companies. Like, I love Vince McMahon. I do. Like, I've learned so much from him, but companies are not people, right, anymore. They become, they've taken on this whole, legally they're their own people, corporation. But for whatever reason, even good people make decisions that benefit a company that actually hurt the people that have worked so hard for the company. And I don't know. That's hard on me mentally, but also that's kind of the system that's been rewarded financially here in the United States. So
there's actually a lot of similarities between what you're talking about in WWE and UFC. a lot of similarities between the two companies. But people will celebrate, oh, I just signed a 6-fight deal with the UFC. You have one bad fight, first fight of that deal, they can release you, but you can't walk away. You have to stick around, and they'll keep extending you and extending you. And so there's a lot of freedom on the side of the promotion, so to speak, not so much on the side of the athlete, performer, et cetera. So it's the exact same thing in MMA. Which,
Yeah,
by the way, which I don't
things-
agree with. I'm not saying I agree with it. It's just, it's interesting to hear from your
Yeah.
perspective. I hate it. I think it's unfair. If they can release you after one fight, you should be able to leave after one fight.
Yeah, well, and then one of the things, and I kind of just accepted it as that's what it was, except for now I work for AEW. And Tony Khan, I think he's only let go of 3 people since the pandemic started.
Wow.
And they were all disciplinary reasons. And other people who are no longer with the company, if he didn't want them, their contract's expired. And then, okay, we've chosen not to re-sign you. And then you kind of know,
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's how he kind of approaches it. And until I kind of saw that and dealt with that, like it just gave me, like, I always kind of thought it was unfair, but that's just the way wrestling is. And that's the way the wrestling business works. Except for Tony Khan came in and he doesn't do that, And so, and AEW from a money standpoint makes way less money than WWE. And so that, that was, there were some things like that too that were, that led me to want to go to AEW as well.
Could I ask, how many years did you sign for?
3 years.
3 years. And are you allowed to go to Japan and do things like that, like Jericho got to do and others? Are you, Christian has a contract, he could go on Impact. Are you allowed to do that?
Yeah. So, obviously I have to clear it all through AEW first. AEW has to be my priority, but yeah, but that's even going to Japan right now. It's hard with COVID and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm able to do that. But to be fair, WWE was going to let me do that as well. So like, with the contract that they offered me, and when I was talking to Vince about it, because that was one of my big things, I was like, I want to be able to go and wrestle these guys all over the world and that sort of thing. And they were going to allow me to do that.
And do you think this is your final contract?
I don't know. I think so. It's really funny because when I think about it in my head, like right now I feel invincible. And like body-wise, I feel my body feels like probably the best it's ever felt since maybe I was in my 20s or whatever it is. And when I signed this deal, my wife and I were kind of thinking that like this would be my last contract. And what I'm kind of hoping is that I'm having so much fun and feeling so good that I hope by the end of the 3 years that I've worked so hard, and this sounds horrible, but I've worked so hard and had so many intense matches that my body doesn't feel that great, like repairable. Like if I stop wrestling for 6 months, I'll feel good as new. But that I'll be like, okay, you know what? Now I'm kind of done being a full-time wrestler, because I think the hard part would be thinking like, man, I still feel good and all this kind of stuff. And I still really want to be a full-time wrestler, but then just thinking because of age or whatever it is, or because I want to be there for my kids, which I realistically do. I think stepping away from being a full-time wrestler then would be a lot more difficult. Any
ill effects from the concussions?
No, I do a lot of work with that kind of stuff. Some of it's like not proven, but I mean, even the United States military is testing like hyperbaric oxygen therapy for concussion treatments and stuff like that. So I do a lot of that. I think a lot of healthy eating. I think one of the things, and I don't know this to be absolutely true, but when they're talking about the tau proteins and all that kind of stuff that is related to CTE, this might be a little deep in the weeds of the science of concussions and stuff, but you don't know how much of that is due to anabolic steroids, and especially with the football players who used it with the brains that they've diagnosed, you don't know how much of it is actually how much animal proteins they eat, all those different kinds of things. And so, not to say, and I'm nowhere near saying like, obviously concussions are dangerous and you need to be very careful, but the number of concussions I've had have been spread out over 21 years. And so, yeah, I feel pretty healthy. My brain's functioning pretty well. And I try to do as many things as possible to keep it functioning well.
Well, like I said, have watched you for a long time, admired your work. Love to see you doing your thing now in AEW. It seems like you're happy. You can feel the happiness kind of glowing off of you. It's a new chapter for you. I love, just from afar, obviously, I don't know you personally, but it seems like you love being a dad. I respect that most about you as a father of 3 as well. I could see how much you love your children. So respect on that, my friend. And love that you are an MMA fan as well. So continued success. Congratulations on the new deal. And good luck tonight against Rocky Romero. Thanks for taking some time out on a show day. I know that's not common. So you're a real mensch for doing that. And good luck on the pay-per-view on Sunday, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it's still a messed up thing for me. I call you Daniel, I call you Brian. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I just messed it up there. Brian, it's a freaking annoying thing.
CM Punk, he in WWE, he had a hard time calling me Daniel Bryan.
Right, yeah.
And then he comes doing commentary in AEW and called me Daniel Bryan instead of Bryan Danielson. It all gets messed up, so it's fine.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All the best.
Yep, have a good one.
All right, there he is. Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon. How cool was that? A legend from the world of pro wrestling. I hope that you appreciate that he is a big MMA fan as well and has used MMA as an influence as far as his style is concerned. The Yes Chants with Diego Sanchez doing it in the early days, then he took it to a whole other level. And I don't know how many of you remember after UFC 148 when Chael Sonnen threw the spinning back fist and missed and then got nailed in the stomach via a knee from Anderson Silva. Both Daniel Bryan, now known as Bryan Danielson, his real name, and CM Punk essentially paid homage to that, replayed that in the ring on Monday Night Raw. So that was really cool. Check out AEW this evening on TNT, and they also have that's AEW Dynamite. They also have Rampage on Friday nights, and they have a pay-per-view called Full Gear on Sunday, November 13th, this Sunday, and that is going down in Minnesota. Like I've said on this program, the wrestling world is on fire.